All right. Well, hey, it is great to be back with you in church. Deb and I were gone last week on vacation. And before I go any further, I want to give a great big shout out to our team for a great job last week. Can we just honor the team that made it happen last week? Our worship team, all the teams, our dream teams, our staff. Thank you so much. They did a great job. I want to honor Pastor Rodney for bringing the word last week and kicking off our brand new sermon series. But it is great to be back. Deb and I went south for about a week and 2 days, and we had a great time. We were by the beach, and, we saw the dolphins and saw manatees and saw stingray. And one time, Deb was alone. She was taking a walk, and there was this guy fishing on the beach, and he reeled in a 5-foot grouper, no lie. Deb's got a picture to prove it, this humongous grouper. One day, I was alone walking, and I saw this guy pulling like a 6-foot tarpon. It was amazing. Got a video. It was just great. We had a great time. I had a chance to do some cycling last week. Did about just a ton of cycling. Got on the bike and tried some new restaurants. But we just had a great time. Hey, I have a lot of times when I'm preaching, I love to tell corny jokes and make you smile a little bit, and laugh. I don't have a joke today, but I kind of have a funny story to tell on myself. Would you like to hear it? Okay, I thought you would. Anyways, okay, so we love just bumming around on the beach. That's we love to do that on vacation. And what happened is, Deb's real good at getting the sunscreen on. Okay, she's always lathering up like every hour, and I'm not as disciplined with that. Okay, but anyways, I thought after a couple days in, I thought it was a good day that I tried to do that. And so in the bag, she had this aerosol stuff. Okay, it wasn't oil, it's not lotion, it's like an aerosol lotion. It's supposed to be more convenient. You can just put it on fast, right? Well, I thought, I'll try it. So I grabbed the aerosol, and this is what I did, because I was kind of in a hurry. I just went, and I thought, okay, I'm good to go. I'm out in the sun, all day, and I go to bed, and I wake up the next day, and I look in the mirror. I'm like, oh, my gosh. I had a big white S on my chest, okay? Because I just went like this, and I had a big old white S. And so I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, that's kind of cool because back home our church is kicking off a brand new series called Heroes. And so I got this big, S on my chest. So, only husbands and wives can do this, right? So I'm goofing around, joking around with Deb. I'm like, hey, Deb, man, check out my S. I'm Superman. And she goes, it's a Z. I could have swore when I was looking in the mirror it was an S, but it was a Z. She goes, so I went from Superman to Zorro that quick. Oh, man, it was humiliating. So anyways, funny for the day. But, man, the vacation was a success when before you're, like, ready to go. You are like, I am ready to unplug, and I need a break. But after about 7 days, after a week, man, we were so ready to come home and get back to our family and our church family. And so, we came back actually Wednesday morning, and we took the rest of this past week, still on vacation, but at home, just doing work around the house, and actually kind of kicked back into, transitioning from vacation mode back into normal mode yesterday, Saturday, and got right back into the swing of things where I had a great opportunity yesterday where we had a chance to train some local pastors. And we actually filled up the fellowship hall yesterday. I have an opportunity to oversee some pastors, and we just invited them here yesterday and fed them a barbecue lunch and just poured into their lives and how we do next steps and how we do small groups and how we do dream teams. And man, they were just soaking it up, and it was great to be an encouragement to them. And you guys are a part of that. And it's great to be an encouragement to the body of Christ. And so I want to just say thank you so much for being an amazing church. Man, you are so loved. I don't even know if you know how much you are loved and appreciated. We honor you so much, and it's just great to be back. Well, like I said, really kind of came out of vacation mode yesterday, so I'm actually not preaching today. A couple months ago, I asked Pastor Rodney to do last week, and I asked Pastor Mike to bring the word today. And a couple months ago, I didn't know this, but this week I found out that when I asked Pastor Mike to preach today on June 5th, that it's his birthday today. It is Mike's birthday today. And so check this out. A church our size, we can't sing happy birthday every week, okay? But when you're preaching on your birthday, we are singing today. So as he comes, would you join me in singing? Come on, Mike. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Pastor Mike. Happy birthday to you. Let's give it up for Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love this guy.
Thanks,
Mike,
man.
you are loved.
Thank you.
You're awesome. And first service was great. I know you're going to knock it out of the park, bro.
Thank you, sir. Well, it does feel good to be 30. No, but to whenever I'm embarrassed, I always like it when other people share in my embarrassment. So I just want to point out real quick, Joanna Hirschberger right there. Wave, Joanna. It's her birthday today, too. So make sure you wish her a happy birthday, too. She's older than me. 1 year. So she's 31. So, last week we kicked off our Hero series, and Pastor Rodney opened up with Hebrews 12, and I'm going to do the same thing. Hebrews 12:1 says that, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge cloud of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. And so as you know, it's so much easier that when we can watch other people go through life and run the race, it makes it so much easier for us, because then we can look. And so this is what the Scripture is talking about. We can look at those in the Scriptures who have run the race well, and that gives us that encouragement. So last week, Rodney talked about who? Noah, right? So we got to get into Noah's life and, again, to receive that encouragement from him. But today we're going to look at another hero, actually a heroine from the Old Testament, and her name is Esther. And as I was preparing for this, there was one quote that stuck out to me, and it was actually Shakespeare. William Shakespeare said this, and he said that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. And it's okay. That's okay, but I actually prefer Elvis Presley's botched up quoting of that quote in his song, Are You Lonesome Tonight? How many of you guys know that song, Are You Lonesome Tonight? Right. He gets to a part in the song where he's just like speaking, right, kind of like during the bridge, and he says, the world is a stage and each must play a part. Something like that. Which I like that. I like that better, because he says the world is a stage and each must play a part. What I don't like about Shakespeare's, which I feel really odd comparing like the greatest playwright of all time, Shakespeare, comparing him to Elvis. But I think Elvis got it right in just saying that the world is a stage and each must play a part, as opposed to saying what Shakespeare said, all men and women are merely players. Like when you hear merely, that doesn't sit well. Because the reality, when you look at the definition of merely, it means only, simply. You are just another player. I don't like that, because this is what I believe. God doesn't look at us as mere players. He sees us as his beloved children, an essential part of the story. Each and every one of us are an essential part to God's story. So we're going to dive into Esther here. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of break it up in sort of 3 different acts. So Act 1 is basically the setup. This is where we get to know how Esther becomes queen. We're going to get to know some of the characters. And then we're going to move into Act 2, which is essentially the conflict and why Esther has been chosen to become queen at that time, although she didn't necessarily know it when she became queen. But then 3 is just the resolution. So I'm just going to talk for maybe about 10 minutes, just try to briefly share Esther's story with you. And then I'm going to show some scriptures along the way as well. But I'm going to be missing parts of Esther's story. So I'm going to encourage you that if you have some time this week, it's only 10 chapters long. It's a fascinating book. There's so much to it other than what I'm going to be able to share tonight, but just today, time doesn't so much allow for that. But I encourage you, read Esther. So Act 1, we have King Xerxes. Now, King Xerxes is king of Persia at this time, and so Persia is pretty much essentially the world. And so it's ranging from India to Ethiopia up near Greece. It's just vast. And so he's got this huge, huge kingdom. And the Jews are exiles within the Persian Empire. And so they're just under Persian rule. And one day, King Xerxes, your translation may say King Ahasuerus or Artaxerxes, but we're just going to go with Xerxes today. And so what King Xerxes decides to do, he's getting ready to go on this campaign to invade Greece, to take it over. And so he's going to party, right, like it's 1999. And so what he does, so this is no like college frat party, Animal House. This is like the party of all parties. This is a 180-day party. So this is huge, in which he tells pretty much all of his subjects and all of his guests to pretty much drink as much wine as you want to drink or don't want to drink. And so one day, King Xerxes, as the scripture says, when the heart of the king was merry with the wine. So in other words, the king had a little too much to drink. So the king was a little tipsy at this time, and he makes this statement. He says, "Go and get Queen Vashti." So his queen at the time, Vashti, who was off sort of having her own party somewhere else in the palace. He says, "Go and bring the queen here because I want to present her in front of my friends so they can see how beautiful she is." And so in doing so, she refuses. Now, some people would just say, oh, well, she's just an insubordinate, disrespectful wife. Well, no, because what the king was saying at the time was, bring her here so I can show off her beauty. But that was actually against the customs of the day. A Persian woman would not show her beauty to anybody other than her husband. And Josephus, who was a Jewish historian, actually went as far to say that actually what the king was asking is that she would come and appear naked before everybody. Which not only was this, so if you go with the first theory, it was just against the custom and wrong. And then if you go with the second one, it's just flat out demeaning, dehumanizing, gross, inappropriate, wrong. And so whatever's happening, he is totally devaluing Vashti, his wife. And so she refuses, and this just like ticks off the king. And so what he does is, instead of like trying to work things out with her later on, he and his council all decide, well, we can't just allow the queen to continue to be the queen. We need to set an example of her. So instead of working things out and forgiving, he divorces her. So he removes her from her position. And now we see this is where Esther comes into play. And so another proclamation goes out to all of the province, again, this vast province that the king oversees. And the proclamation is to bring all young, beautiful virgins to the king so that they would present himself to her, so that out of these beautiful young virgins, he would choose a queen out of all of them. And so this is where we pick up Esther and Mordecai, two other major players in our story here. And we're going to learn a little bit about Esther and Mordecai. So in chapter 2, verse 7, Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter, where her father and mother died. So we see that Esther's beautiful. She is, at some point in life, she lost her parents, probably at a pretty early age, and her cousin, Mordecai, has pretty much become her dad, has taken care of her. Verse 10 says, Esther had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. So now we see that nobody in the king's court, nobody knows that she's Jewish. The king doesn't know that she's Jewish either. And verse 15, it says, now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. So we see that she was orphaned young as a child, pretty much adopted by her cousin. She's beautiful, lovely figure. She's not telling anybody what her nationality is because Mordecai told her not to, but yet she's winning favor in the eyes of everybody who saw her. Now, at this point in time, Esther is brought kind of like to a spa. It's sort of like a year-long beautification process into which she would sit 6 months either lathering or soaking in just sort of oils so that her skin would be soft and smelling good, and there would be 6 months of just sort of aromas that were just kind of being like, she would be sitting among aromas so that good smells and perfumes would like come into her clothes and into her skin. So not only is she already beautiful, but they're beautifying her even more, if that's a word. And so after the process goes through, she is selected the queen of Persia, and that leads us then to another guy named Haman. Now, Haman is a pretty wicked dude. Haman is the second in command of Persia. He is prime minister, so second to the king, this guy is in charge. And so there's one day in which there's a law that's written that basically anytime that Haman would be out in the public area, people would need to bow to Haman. That is the law. That is the decree. And so one day, as Haman's walking, Mordecai, who's out among the gate, Esther is already queen at this time, Mordecai doesn't bow before Haman. And we don't know exactly why. It could be because Haman by birth was an Amalekite, which he was an enemy of the Jewish people. That could be why. Or maybe Mordecai just said, hey, I'm not going to bow the knee to any man. I'm going to bow my knee to God. We don't exactly know why. But he refused to do that. Haman saw it, ticked him off. So he goes off to the king and he says, hey, king, you know what? There is sort of a stain among our society. There are these people, and he didn't tell them that they were the Jewish people. He just said, there are a people among us who have different laws, different customs, and they don't acknowledge you as king. And so, can it be that we will write a decree to just wipe them out? And so the king's like, sounds good to me. Go and do whatever you want. So this decree goes out that essentially all Jews in all the provinces that King Xerxes oversaw, that on an appointed day in which Haman just rolled a dice to figure out when it would happen, on an appointed day that all Jews, all the people of the non-Jews could kill the Jewish people. So that way annihilating all Jews. Genocide is what they were talking about. And so, of course, right now, the Jewish people are in mourning. Mordecai is in mourning because they know exactly what's happening. So this brings us up to Act 2, which is the conflict. So Mordecai in mourning, Esther goes and approaches pretty much his servants. They're having this conversation sort of between two people. Esther's in the palace, Mordecai's out, and the servants kind of running messages. And Mordecai is essentially encouraging her, you need to stand up for your people. And he says this, do not think of yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all of the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. You want to remember that out of two verses in the book of Esther that you want to remember, this one is key. Now, Esther's response, she kind of has to go back and forth because she knows exactly what this means. She's going to have to lay down her life because there's also a decree, a law written, that whenever the king is off in his royal house, sitting on his royal throne, unless asked, nobody is allowed to go to the king to ask him anything. Even his wife is not allowed to go to the king and ask anything of him. And so she knew that the decree said that if the king woke up on a bad day and just he saw somebody while he was sitting on his throne and he didn't like that, he could, by law, have that person killed, even his wife. And so this is the risk that she's going to be taking. And so this is her reply, though. Go gather all of the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Remember that one as well, because that's huge. So she comes to this decision that I'm going to go before the king, and if he has a bad day, he could kill me, and that's okay, because I'm doing the right thing. If I perish, I perish. So Esther goes before the king after the 3 days of fasting, and when the king sees her, he delights in Esther. So she is safe. She's good. And so it basically wraps up where Esther invites the king and Haman to 2 banquets, and at the second banquet, he reveals to the king exactly the plan that Haman had put out, that it was for the Jewish people who were going to be annihilated. And Esther reveals that this is my people. I am a Jew. Under law, people would be killing me as well. And so the king is just infuriated with Haman. And so he essentially has Haman hung on the gallows, killed, and the Jewish people are essentially saved. Another decree goes out that the Jewish people are allowed to defend themselves on that appointed day that they were supposed to be killed, and they do, and they become victorious. And so we accredit this heroine, Esther, for essentially saving the lives of thousands, if not millions, of Jews. Pretty awesome, right? Pretty awesome. So then how do we bring that back home to us? Like, how does this even apply to us? Because that's pretty intense. But I'm going to point out three things. We're going to just kind of take our time going through three things in which I feel like how we apply this today. And the first thing that I want to ask you before we get into this is, where has God placed you today? Personally, your job, your family situation, your health situation, situation with your kids. Where are you placed today? Because that's significant. Significant. Where are you? Because this is what I believe. Point one, and you can follow along in your notes, that God puts us where he wants us because he sees something in us that is necessary for the time. If we were to go back to Esther 4 and reread that, For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish, and who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Have you ever considered your significance, that maybe you are where you are today for such a time as this? It's huge. Again, we're not merely players in the play, right? We are essential to God's story. Esther, what it seemed like for Esther, God obviously knew how the plan was all going to unfold and what he needed to do. And so for Esther, God knew that once Vashti was removed, he needed to place a Jewish woman to become queen. So that was one thing that Esther had going for her. But it was also, I think it was just her character. Obviously, she was beautiful and lovely in figure, which is what the scripture says. But I think that there was probably something more. Her character must have stuck out because it said that she was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. So there was something about Esther that people just stopped and looked at and said, I like that person. There was just something about her. And I believe it had to do with her character and just who she was, her faith and her love for God. So have you ever considered that where you are today is because God chose you to be there? Like for some of you, that might be like, thanks, God. All right. Because life really stinks right now. But when you think about it, like, God has you there for a reason. And when you begin to like put that on, okay, I'm in this situation because why? Well, we know that as disciples of Christ, we're supposed to bring light into the world, right? To dark places. We're supposed to show his love, okay? So maybe by chance, God has put you in somebody's path. God has allowed a situation to happen in your life that he's going to receive glory for it later on. That he's going to actually use your experiences, your knowledge, your passions, everything that you're going through right now. He's going to use that to bring himself glory and also to bring people closer to you. When you think about that, that's like, wow, all right. Thanks, God, that you're trusting me with this situation. That's amazing, man. That the God of the universe has given you what you need to bring life, love, and hope into a situation. It's awesome. And number two, you have something to bring to the table. You have you. Now, you might have, how many of you have ever said, like, oh gosh, okay, so like, what do I got to give? What do I have? What do I have to bring to the table to make a difference in anybody's life? I'm no good at and we go through the list. That's my life right there. So often just living like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't, just not trusting that God who created me has given me the ability to do these things. And so often we just discredit ourselves. And I think that when we do that, we discredit God as well in saying that, what do I have to bring to the table? Well, you have you. Most of us will not make a huge decision like Esther did, which saved, a nation from genocide, from being wiped out. We're not going to do that. We're not going to be kings, queens, presidents. We're going to live probably fairly ordinary lives, but in that ordinary life, affecting those around us, in your jobs, in your families, in your schools. And you're going to have that ability to be able to impact lives, to change lives for the kingdom of God, to breathe life. And that's significant. That's huge. And so you're just going to bring you to the table. And so I got thinking, like, if there is a modern day Esther, like, okay, so she lived so long ago, great story, this is a great example, but if we were to like look at today for a modern day Esther, it was obvious to me, it was clear. Our modern day Esther is Chewbacca Mom. How many of you guys don't know who Chewbacca Mom is? Raise your hand. Like, Chewbacca, yes, not me. Okay, that's a lot of you. So you're going to enjoy this video. Well, we have a video that we're going to show you. And let me just kind of set it up a little bit, all right? So there is this video that's been going around Facebook for about maybe 3 weeks now. It's had over 150 million views with this particular video. And all it simply is a mother of two delighting in a mask that she picks up from Kohl's. She goes to Kohl's, it's her birthday, so she goes to Kohl's to take back a few things, and she's like, well, I'm just going to pick up some yoga pants and, call it a day. But she sees this mask somewhere in the store, this Chewbacca mask. And she's like, well, that's way cooler than yoga pants. And so what you're going to see is her opening up this gift, and please, please feel free to laugh along.
You can see it kind of has Star Wars. Oh, you're getting a little hint. Okay, so you want to see what I got? It's so great. I can't wait to show you. Okay, this is part of my birthday joy. Still rejoicing in my birthday. And so here's what I got. I'm going to take it out of the box. And I can't wait to show you. Okay, I'm in a parking lot and people are literally looking at me like crazy. I don't even care. Okay, so here it is. Hold on. It may be a little tight. It may be tight on me. I gotta undo it just a little bit. Hold on. Stay patient, people. Stay patient. This is gonna be worth it. I promise. Maybe not, but it's worth it to me. And I had to share with my friends on the internet webs. So here's what I'm having trouble getting it. Okay, patient. All right, we're doing good. Okay, so this is what I got. Once again, this is for me. Not for Duncan, not for Cadence. I mean, I'll let them play with it. I'm not a bad mom. I'm not a jerk. But in all honesty, at the end of the day, it doesn't go in their toy box. It goes in my room. So here we go. I got to take off my glasses for it. Oh, naturally. Okay, here we go. So, yes! Now watch when my mouth actually moves. That's not me making that noise, it's the mask! Here, listen. Worth every penny!
So we had to cut the video short because she literally goes on for another minute and a half just laughing at herself. But let me give you a little bit of just kind of the impact that this is having. All right, so like I said, it's got over 150 million views on Facebook. That is like more than any Facebook video ever. And that's less than like 3 weeks, so it's huge. Since then, she has gone on to meet the director of the new Star Wars, J.J. Abrams. She's received letters from Peter Mayhew, who was the real Chewbacca from the Star Wars movies. She's gone to Disney World. She's been on different talk shows, Good Morning America, Fox News, NPR, the Late Late Show with the one guy who does the car thing, James Corden. And so she is making an impact all over the world. Just this week, actually, she received word from Southeastern University that they are offering free tuition for her and her family to go to college. Like, that's crazy, right? All because of this video. And so there was the study that was done. Like, why are people watching this particular video so much? Well, the study showed that people tend to click on things that make them happy. instead of things that make them sad. Things that bring joy to their lives, they tend to click on those things. And so obviously you see this woman laughing her head off with a Chewbacca mask, you're like, okay, that's kind of funny. I got to check this out. Now, what you also need to know about, her name is Candace Payne. So what you need to know about her is she also loves Jesus. She has been a worship leader since the age of 14. She is currently, I believe, still works with youth in her church. And if you go back and you even Google her name, you'll see a video that she posted even 3 days prior to the Chewbacca video of her just sitting around her living room playing banjo, singing Power in the Blood. So she loves the Lord, and you could see that true joy that just comes out. And so this is her message. This is her bringing her to the table. Like when you look at Esther, what was Esther bringing to the table? Well, she was Jewish, so she qualified, in what God was looking for. So that worked. But it was also her character that out of all of the Jewish women, that God said, this is the one that God chose to be queen. And so what does Chewbacca mom have? Well, stay-at-home mom, 2 kids. She's just posting a little video to her friends on Facebook. She loves Star Wars. She's a happy person. And 150 million views later, she's affecting the world. This is our modern-day Esther. Here's a quote that she says. But the truth is that my relationship with Jesus Christ has completely made me who I am because he's told me who I am. And once you know you're loved by God, and not just a God, but the God that created everything, your whole life changes. You don't have to impress anybody else because you've got the one opinion that matters. And I think one of the reasons why people love this video so much is because it's just she's being real. She's just being who she is, honest, laughing her head off, looking silly, But it's changing lives. She goes on to say this. When simple joys turn to extravagant joys, this is what you end up with. When you have a heart full of joy, it'll change everything. That's pretty darn cool. So that's what happens when we bring us to the table. When you think about it, Esther, she didn't really ask to be queen as far as we know. Chewbacca mom didn't ask to be this internet sensation. They were just being themselves, who they were, loving Jesus every day. And God said, right now, for such a time as this is where I'm going to use you. So what do you have to bring to the table? And again, don't say nothing, because that's not true. That's a lie. What do you have to bring to the table? How can you use your place in this world, your experiences and so forth, to effect change in the lives of the people around you? Because again, when you think about it, wherever God has placed you in this world, it's not just for your benefit. It's not about you being comfortable. It's really for the benefit of other people. Like, do you think Esther really wanted to make this decision? No, not at all. This was a hard call to make. But she made the right choice, and lives were saved. God had it under control. And the third thing that I want to focus on is this. Be determined to risk it all. Esther 4:16, we see again her words. Go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. She had it made up in her mind. Now, granted, she had about a conversation's length to make this decision as she was talking to Mordecai to say, okay, if I perish, I perish. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go before the king. But I think for so many of us too, when you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you kind of said the same thing. Matthew 16, Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. So at some point in your life, you said, okay, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to lay it all down on the line. Your life, essentially, you're submitting everything to him. So you've kind of already sort of done what Esther did, so to speak. But I almost feel like we have to do that every day. That kind of renewing in your mind, that resolve that you have to lay everything down for Jesus, because this is what I believe. Some of you are already in that place where God has called you to be. And maybe there's some decisions that you need to make, things going on that are terribly uncomfortable. You don't like this place, but God has placed you there because he believes in you, because he wants you there, because you are the one who are supposed to affect change in the lives of those around you. You. And I believe that some of us are maybe we're just in that place where God is getting us ready for that time, for that for such a time as this, that you're going to be called upon to do something to affect change for somebody's life. So right now, wherever you are, decide that if I perish, I perish. That whatever decision I make, more than likely the decisions that you have to make when you're in that place, when you have to call the shots, it's not going to be your life on the line, more than likely, like it was with Esther. Maybe it's your pride, maybe it's your humility, maybe it's your comfort, I don't know. But be resolved in your mind today that when that time comes, you're going to be able to risk it all. You're going to lay it all down. So my question to you is, what do you have to risk? Consider that. What do you have to risk, really? The God of the universe loves you so very much that he has placed you in a specific place for a certain specific necessary time. Why are you there? Why are you there? Again, he believes in you, right? He loves you so very much, right? You're there for a reason. Proverbs 3 says, "Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him and he will make your paths straight." Trust in the Lord. In closing, I was thinking about the movie Dead Poets Society as I'm preparing this. How many have seen the movie Dead Poets Society? It's been out for a while. It's about Robin Williams. He plays this character. He's an English teacher where he's teaching poetry to this, in a university, just all guys. And at first meeting them, he's having this kind of fun little sort of discourse, and they're reading some poetry, and he says to them, "Carpe diem," which is Latin, which means seize the day, which many of you probably know that. Unless you took Latin, you probably know that because of Dead Poets Society. It kind of brought that back up, So seize the day. He was telling these guys, seize the day. Or in other words, for such a time as this. It's kind of the same thing, So when you're going to be in a place that God has called you to make those decisions, to affect the change, to bless those around you, to show that love that you need to, the love of Christ, be willing to seize that opportunity. Another poem that's in the movie, they're quoting Walt Whitman of "Oh Me, Oh Life." And in the poem, he opens it up by just basically questioning life and the futility of man and why we exist, why he exists. And he asks this question. "The question, oh me, so sad, recurring, what good amid these, oh me, oh life?" And then he answers his question, that you are here, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on, that you may contribute a verse. That you may contribute a verse. Esther's verse in history is to be queen, to save a nation from being annihilated. So what is your verse? What are you bringing to the table? How are you bringing you to the table to affect that change in the lives of those around us?